Hi, Linny.
Hi, Nancy.
Welcome to episode 111 of the Front Porch Book Club.
The Front Porch Book Club is a podcast that meets twice a month.
We like to dig deep into the relationship between characters and the worlds they live in.
Grab your book and iced tea and join us on the front porch.
We have a special opening today.
We got a present.
Let's just say we don't expect presents.
This is our first ever after 3 years.
Right. But we're so excited. Our friend and author, Laura Rudisil, sent us packages, one to Linny in Pennsylvania, one to me in Nebraska, and she suggested that we open them at the same time.
Yeah.
We decided that we would do the opening on an episode.
Yeah.
We both have our scissors ready to go. It's well packaged.
All right. So, are you ready?
Yep.
Go.
Oh,
I love this.
This is beautiful.
Golly. So, what we have here is a sun catcher, I guess, or a stained glass butterfly.
Quite beautiful.
Very pretty with lots of nice colors.
Mm-hmm.
That is lovely that she gave this to us.
And they look like they were created by Candy J. Duda, who is a stained glass garden artist. So maybe a person could hang this in their garden, which would be quite pretty.
Oh, maybe I should do that.
Nice silver soldering.
Yeah.
And I think that they're probably about, 5 inches by 4 inches. So a good size.
Yeah. What it is it's a nice size that you can actually see like the craftsmanship and the soldering that goes along with it. Oh, this is lovely.
Quite beautiful. Well, Laura, thank you so much for such a beautiful present. My goodness.
Yes, and we got to see the card, Nance.
Okay.
It says, find gratitude in every experience. Make gratitude the centerpiece of all you do, all you have, and all you are. As a practice, say thank you as often as you can. The energy of gratitude will heal and take you to heights of ecstasy.
Mine says, genuine gratitude rewards the giver and the receiver.
Oh.
Is that not a lovely way to start a podcast, Linny?
It is, because this book's about war. So I need some sunshine in my life because I have been in African war for 2 weeks. That was a long book.
Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. That's so lovely.
Well, you're right. So we're talking war today. This month, we're reading Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. You might remember episode 88. We had a guest to discuss Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, and that was Dr. Thomas Jay Lynn. And during that episode, he mentioned one of his favorite books about Africa was Half of a Yellow Sun. Do you remember that, Linny?
Vaguely, yes.
Okay.
I remember talking to him.
Yeah.
And I remember that he had recommendations. Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart was really, I think it was my top book.
Mm-hmm.
So this book takes place in Nigeria. We hit this book before the war so we can learn about the culture, the people, the times, the characters. We see them in their current state. Then we see what war does to them and how they survive or not.
Yeah.
The arc, now that I know that that takes place in stories and what happens in their country.
I tell you, whenever things start out well in a novel, you know it's not going to last.
I was kind of hoping it would pick up because it was like a lot of cooking, a lot of dinner parties.
Everyday life, things going along nicely.
Just as nice as can be.
Yeah.
And 2 sisters, some wealthy families. That's always nice. Well fed.
You'd think, well, maybe this is just like a little domestic drama.
Yeah.
little soap opera kind of a thing. Like, will she fall in love with Mohammed and stay with him? Will she go be with Odenigbo? But no, this is not a happy little domestic story. There's a war. Even though the war disrupts everything, of course, for me, this story was really about the lives of two 20-something twin sisters, Olanna and Kainene, and the choices they make during this time. So you get an idea of where their lives are going before the war. As you mentioned, wealthy, educated. Kainene is running their father's businesses increasingly. She's very smart businesswoman. She's very blunt. She's very confident. She is not particularly pretty, which is what distinguishes them from the exterior, because Olanna is a great beauty, but she's a real people pleaser and she really lacks confidence. So we're talking about twins who come at life in two very different ways. So, my first question for you, Linny, is how much did you know about Biafra before reading this book?
Well, nothing.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that it was going to be a book on war either.
Oh, yeah.
Therefore, I didn't know how it was going to end. So I wasn't sure, are we going to have another uprising or are we going to have another coup? I wasn't really sure. How long did this go on? I didn't really know. Did you know anything, Nance, about this?
I knew nothing about this except
Oh,
for the
okay.
little tiny bit of reading I did for Things Fall Apart. I read that Chinua Achebe had written a book set in the time of Biafra also.
Oh.
So I feel like a typical American, unaware of what's happening on the African continent.
Well, I was a child then. You were too.
It still seems like we have had some decades since that
Yes.
time.
Okay, we could have caught up. That's on me.
I've talked to a couple people since I've read this book, and they also have never heard of this.
Okay, well, I do know this. There are a lot of wars and turmoil and coups in Africa, it seems.
I think that this is the result of colonization. I thought that Chinua Achebe really illustrated this beautifully, that Nigeria was just formed on the whim of the British imperialists. And it was what, the British prime minister's wife who decided to call it Nigeria. It was just their fancy of, well, we're going to make this area its own country. And even though these tribes have nothing to do with each other, we're going to make them all a country that we're going to rule over. We're going to call it, let's go with Nigeria. And then when it's time to leave, so long, we're out of here. Good luck with that Nigeria thing. So no surprise that after they leave, there's lots of turmoil. And that's kind of the story of colonization in a lot of ways.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Chimamanda is Nigerian. Her family is Nigerian. And she knows a lot about the Biafran War. I read an interview she did where she said she did years and years of research to write this book. In fact, she started researching the Biafran War when she was 12.
That's pretty young. I was playing with Barbies when I was 12.
Yeah. So she immersed herself in archives, the music of the era, and really was interested in capturing the emotion and feel of the time. But most interesting, she interviewed her parents and other family members to understand their firsthand experiences during the war, because her parents were approximately the ages of Olanna and Kainene during the war. Both of Chimamanda's grandfathers died in refugee camps during the war. Her parents were academics, again, like Olanna and Odenigbo, and they lost everything. Her brother was born during the war. So lots of family stories. And then, of course, then there's the extended family and friends of family. She says that almost every incident in the novel is based on something that actually happened. So that is pretty devastating when you think about all the atrocities that we read about and the thought that they actually happened.
Yeah, I read that after I read the story. It was like an afterword. Is that what they
Yeah.
call it? Afterword?
Yep.
It was in that section. I was like, oh, really? I'm sorry to hear that. But it didn't surprise me because war is horrible.
Yeah.
The society's fallen apart. There are very little rules of conduct.
Yep.
People are scrambling for power. Everybody's hungry. It's just not going well. I talked a little bit about the reptile brain last session, and here we are back to a very survival existence. You're looking for food. You're just scrounging around to live every day if you can. And to survive it is amazing because a lot of people don't.
Yeah, and this is not a war. The soldiers go off in remote areas, and the battlefield is off away from where civilians are. Oh, no, no. The soldiers are raiding villages. They're wiping out entire villages of men, women, and children. They are,
There's brutality.
yeah,
It's hand-to-hand combat. Yeah, they have guns,
yeah.
but they're shooting each other, and then they're going to that village, and then they're killing everybody that lives in the village. They're taking over that village, and then they're walking to the next village, and they're killing everybody in that village, and then they're walking. It's horrifying and sad.
There's no food because
No.
no one can farm because you would just be killed if you tried to farm.
And there's no food that's coming in.
You have a huge populations of people who go to refugee camps and are trying to live there. But of course, there are also some bombers. And so the bombers go overhead and bomb the refugee camps.
Right.
It's terrifying.
So you have to have your own bunker so you can survive.
And some of these bunkers aren't much.
No, because some people are being buried alive in them. So do you go in the bunker or do you just flatten yourself on the land and hope?
Yeah. So this story is written from the civilian point of view almost entirely, which is people living hand to mouth, just trying to survive.
Well, I'm glad that it was written through the civilian mind. We hear enough about colonels and people who are playing risk
Yeah.
with their little puzzle pieces and strategy of where to put people and what the war is about and everything else. I much rather hear what life is like on the ground with the people who are just trying to send their kids to school, which of course isn't happening,
Right.
and trying to put food on the table so their babies' bellies don't swell up and die on them.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of characters in the story. Shall we start out with the sisters?
I thought it was interesting that Chimamanda decides to make them twin sisters who are so different from one another. By the time the book opens, they're already distanced from each other, even though they've gone to school in England. And as children, they were very close. But they're back in Nigeria and they have drifted apart. Olanna isn't even sure why, but Kainene is not as loving to her as she once was and just mostly seems to try to avoid her or finds her a nuisance. That made me think of Nigeria as a country. So here is this country of native tribes, but they are people who have been formed into a nation, but the cracks are starting to show. They are distancing themselves from one another, just as Kainene and Olanna are distancing themselves from one another. And we are on the verge of a conflict. And they come from two very different points of view about life.
Wow.
So I felt like there were some interesting parallels.
I did not catch that at all. But I agree with you. I mean, wouldn't that be clever?
Yeah.
I bet the author did think that.
I don't know if she did or not.
My goodness. I forgot that they were even twins.
Tell me what you thought about the sisters.
Well, I wanted to like them because they're sisters.
Okay. Did you?
Well, yeah.
Good.
They're both different.
Yeah.
That's okay. They both have different personalities, different strengths.
Mhm.
And I thought the author does a good job of creating an image of what they're both like, but I found them both likable
Uh-huh.
enough, likable enough. I wasn't in love with them. I can't say that I liked anybody in this book. Nance, when you're writing, you have told me you have to care about the characters.
Yeah.
I was thinking of that when I was reading this book. Yes, I cared about the sisters. I cared about all of the characters, but not passionately so.
Mhm. Was it because of their flaws? Because she draws them as full human beings. They have strengths, as you mentioned, but they're also flawed people, just as we are all flawed.
Well, maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe it's the lack of connection that they seem to have at the beginning.
Mhm.
No one is perfect in this book. They're all, you're right, people who have kind of some big problems.
Yeah.
Culturally, now that you're saying this about the sisters, I felt that way about the culture and the people too. Like,
Mhm.
what the heck are you guys doing over there? Do you see what you're doing? Like, as a country,
Yeah.
you're Biafra all the way, and you don't realize it's being destroyed. And it's like, are your eyes not open? Do you not see what's happening? You're going down with the ship, and you still think you're going to be okay. You're not. They've got these rosy eyed, God's on our side.
Mhm.
Really? Everybody thinks God's on their side. Even football players think God's on their side. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, that might be part of it, Nance. But part of that being in a world like that is wanting to care about what happens to them. And I did, but not, again, passionately.
Did you have a favorite sister?
I didn't. I thought both of them were interesting characters. I was so disappointed in Olanna. You don't have sex with your sister's boyfriend.
I think that's a good rule, yes.
Nancy, we made it clear there will be no boys that will come between us. We're not going
Right.
to date somebody who the other one's interested.
Right.
You just don't do that. That's a girl code. You don't do it. You don't go there. It didn't mean anything to either one of them.
Nope.
And Olanna, what is going on with your psyche that you would do this with no even thought about it? And no, it just doesn't just happen either.
Right.
You knew exactly what you were doing to your sister when you invited him over. It was planned. She knew what she was doing, and she did that to stab her sister, and I didn't like it.
Is that why you thought she did it?
Yes.
And why do you think she wanted to stab her sister?
I don't know. I don't think it was selfish. I don't think it was sexual. I think this is planned out, and she did it because she wanted to hurt her sister.
Yeah.
I don't know. She's upset with her sister, that her sister pulls away from her, that her sister's smart, that her sister has power in the company, that her sister doesn't give a crap sometimes and says what's on her mind. And Olanna's been kind of the goody goody two shoes. I don't know what's going on with her. The author doesn't really say, but I think she did it to jab her sister, and I don't like it. And if I was her friend, I'd tell her, you did that to hurt your sister. So you got to make amends. And if she doesn't want to make amends, you're going to have to live with it because you knew what she was doing.
I feel like Olanna could have used you as a friend.
Well, I wish she would have listened to me before she did that.
Right. She needed someone to sit her down and talk some sense into her. My take on that situation, this is at a time that Olanna is on a break with Odenigbo because he has had sex with his mother's house girl, and this has resulted in a pregnancy. Olanna is trying to figure out her life without Odenigbo because she is saying, I want nothing to do with him. My take on this was not so much that she was trying to get at her sister. She knew Richard was attracted to her because it seems like all men were attracted to her because she was so beautiful. And I feel like she lacked confidence and self-esteem, and she was just basically looking for reassurance from a man that she was desirable. And Richard was very available because he was sort of enchanted by her, and it was pretty obvious. And so he just was an easy way for her to feel better about herself. I think she used him. This is not excusing her. I also don't think that she thought beyond her own selfish needs, and she didn't even consider her sister, which is maybe even worse than actively trying to get at her sister for some reason. But anyway, that's the way I read it.
I can't imagine doing that without thinking about your sister. First of all, Richard is no beefcake. He is nothing.
No. Why does Kainene even put up with Richard as a boyfriend? There's a question for you.
I have no idea. He is nothing special. He's not even writing. He's not doing anything at this point. He's laying around letting these wealthy women take care of him. Okay, he's white. He's England. So we have to have an Englander in the mix of what's going on so that we can see the cultural differences.
But he is the definition of a feat. He is supposedly writing a book on Igbo pottery, but he is writing nothing. And what he writes is no good. And then after a while, he kind of goes on some trips thinking that he'll do research, and they don't really end up in anything either. He's never felt like he really belongs anywhere. His parents died when he was young. He's an orphan from a sort of wealthy family. He lives with his aunt, but it's not like they love him. They just are more caretakers. So when Biafra becomes a country, he starts thinking, well, I'm here at the beginning, so I belong. But the African natives are like,
what are you, white boy with the British accent? You're not one of us. This isn't your battle. Who are you?
Right.
He's a man without a country, basically. He's a man without a job either.
Yeah, I could never quite understand Kainene's attraction to Richard, except that I think he truly loved her, and maybe what she was really looking for was love and appreciation, when it seemed a lot of that had been drained away from her because her sister's so beautiful.
Well, yeah. Kind of thought at the beginning of the book it was, if you mixed it up with the white guys, that showed that you had a little bit more higher class.
Little status symbol.
Yeah, so there could have been some of that.
But then he does end up being valuable because he's a decent journalist. And so during the war, he is the one person who is able to really articulate a Western sensibility about why England should care about this war.
Yeah, and maybe why America should. However, he is only taken seriously because he's white.
That's exactly right.
I think other people were able to communicate that, but his whiteness kind of made a bridge of, we can trust him. He's white. He's one of us. So let's listen to what our journalist has to say, rather than these other people from the culture that are just saying the same thing. He had more clout.
Right.
Because of the color of his skin and his roots.
I think that's exactly right. And there's a lot of casual racism among some of the white people who are still in Nigeria at that time. So when the book starts, Richard is living with Susan, who is a English socialite. She's just kind of shipwrecked her life in Nigeria and very wealthy, doesn't really do anything except for lounge about with the other English expats. She's a very jealous woman and is always worried that Richard is going to leave her. But even when he's having a flirtatious conversation when he first meets Kainene, Susan can't imagine that he would be interested in Kainene because she's African.
Well, and she's not very pretty either.
Yeah, but she kind of encourages the relationship. Oh, she knows more about these pots. Oh, you should really talk to her. So I thought some of that real casual racism was interesting.
Yeah. Hi. Okay. Well, so the sisters, all these people have a huge arc of how they change as a result of the war.
Yep.
Maybe we should start with Olanna because her character is just as well off as her sister. I mean, they both have family money. They're both living a pretty good life.
Yep.
They both have like house boys, people around to cook for them and clean for them and take care of their stuff. But somehow Kainene makes out pretty. She's not hungry during the war. Her experience is she's still working. She's still surviving pretty well. She has a decent place to live and she's got food on the table. Her sister ends up at a refugee camp.
Kainene runs a refugee camp, in fact.
Oh, yeah, she runs her. Oh, yeah, she runs the one that's close to her house.
Yeah.
And her sister's starving.
But she's not living the high life. They are making do with pretty skimpy amounts of food, for sure.
But they have a house and they have food. Her sister doesn't have food, nor does she have a house.
Right.
And she extends grace and forgiveness, and she gives her food.
And she moves in with her, too.
Yeah, for a while. Yeah. Because her husband's a good for nothing son of a gun either. Okay, you have this highly educated man. He's living a pretty good life.
Oh, yes. He's an intellectual.
Well, yeah. And so they're going to drink scotch every night and talk to the other professors at school and intellectualize about what would be good for the Nigerian government and who should rule Nigeria. And they banter back and forth and have different opinions and do different research on their areas of expertise and living a good life.
Until the war comes, and then suddenly being an intellectual
doesn't count for much. In fact, it kind of makes you the low man on the totem pole for the people coming in and taking over your land. Now you're at the bottom of the totem. For some reason, they don't like the intellectuals.
He does have a job in the Biafran government, but those paychecks are pretty sporadic. And then eventually they just stop coming. Or Olanna thinks maybe he just stops going to work because he spends most of his time at the local bar drinking. And I think just sinks into a deep depression. And here he thought he knew everything.
But it seems to me that that's part of, I think, what goes on with him. I think the other part is he is grieving the loss of his mother so severely. That seems to be the catalyst that sets him in a complete funk, like he cannot function. He wants to go bury his mother. He can't get there because of the roadblocks and the war. And he is visioning like her body laying somewhere and animals eating it and things like that. Like he is unsettled. He really has to bury this body. And he isn't able to do it. And it really throws him into a tailspin. He loves his mother. His mother wasn't very likable.
No, his mother was very duplicitous, but they left his mother because she refused to go with them from the home village where his mother still lived. She refused to go with them. They begged. And eventually they were like, well, the troops are coming. We hear all of the guns. We have to go. And she was like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So
I think
my home. Part of that is a lot of guilt, probably, that he left his mother there.
Yeah. She was a very prideful woman. He's that way too. He's a little egotistical, I thought.
Yeah.
But I think she firmly thought too that God would save her.
Yeah. So in terms of talking about arc, Kainene is a very shrewd businesswoman from the start. It is intimated that during the war, she makes certain deals, and that's why she has money. And Olanna is not supportive of the way that her sister has made money.
It's a little shady.
But yet Kainene says, well, who else is going to feed all these refugees? Yeah, I'm making money, but all the money that I'm making, I'm feeding these people who otherwise would be dead because there's no food.
Yeah. And Olanna, I'm feeding you and your little child.
Right. So in a way, Kainene becomes even stronger as a person, I felt, but she also becomes more of a humanitarian. She becomes more outward focused. She is never going to be a soft, cuddly person. She says sometimes she hates those refugees for dying. She is never going to be the Mother Teresa that they all swarm around and want hugs from. But she does become less egocentric by the end of the book. Olanna, who also has been very egocentric and insecure and really reliant on others to define who she is, becomes extremely strong as Odenigbo becomes weaker and weaker and is unable to make decisions, is not providing any food, is seeming like he's curling up in a ball and is going to do nothing, not only to help himself, but to help his family. Olanna is the one who really steps up and she starts bartering. She goes on a trip to meet a former faculty colleague of Odenigbo's to plead for a job for him. She is trying every angle of trying to keep them alive. She puts on her fancy wig to try to save Ugwu from being taken into the army. So she's just doing everything she can. And at the end of the book, a couple people talk about her strength. So I think by the end of the war, and as they move forward, Olanna and Odenigbo, boy, they're going to have a very different marriage than they would have had, because Olanna just was going to, before the war, accept everything Odenigbo said and did. He was going to be the person who made all the decisions. And I think she's really seen that he maybe doesn't have all the answers and that she's strong and she can make decisions.
Yeah, I liked both of their character developments through it. I did not probably see Olanna as weak as you did, because she was about ready to toss him to the curb after the first affair.
That's true.
I don't know. You know, Nance, some of the men in this book, they kind of remind me of The Color Purple a little bit.
That is true.
Because it's like, would you just, why are these women putting up with these men?
They're all a disappointment.
They are. Because if my man was sitting down at the bar while I'm trying to figure out where am I going to get a cricket to feed Sarlie, his child, there'd be words.
Even her father has an affair. All the men are a disappointment. There's not a single man in this book who is worth much.
It's very sad. Okay, can we talk about Baby first?
Yeah, let's talk about Baby.
Why do you think they didn't name this child for like 5 years? From an author's perspective, there's got to be a reason why it was just Baby.
Baby ends up being around 6 or 7 or maybe even 8 by the time the story ends. And it's Kainene who says, you know what? Maybe it's time to stop calling her Baby. Let's call her name and not Baby.
She has a name, but they call her Baby.
It's almost like they got stuck as a couple at that point.
I like that. Yeah, I do like that, because I think that did happen to them.
Yeah.
She realized this lady is pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
and my husband had an affair, and now we got a big problem. Although she returns to the husband, it's still a problem.
Yeah, they never really
recover from that. Okay, we're going to talk about Igbo.
Okay.
So this book opens up. I'm thinking Igbo is the protagonist, right?
Yeah. His aunt works at the university and hears that Odenigbo is looking for a houseboy. She summons him from the village. He's never left the village. He leaves this remote village that is very
isolated.
He doesn't even know what a refrigerator is.
What we see is him growing up. We see that he's connected to his tribe still and his local people. Mm-hmm. We see now that he is a part of this wealthy African family, but he gets drafted into the war. And by drafted, it's not you get a letter in the mail. It's a van pulls up, you're walking down the road and they stuff you in and say, you're part of the army now.
Yep.
That's how that happens.
But by now, he's probably a late teen.
Yeah. And they show him how to shoot a gun and how to walk a straight line. So Ugwu, he ends up being a big disappointment to me.
Yeah.
All I could think of when I was going through this book, besides The Color Purple, is this reptile brain and the fact that the government is falling apart. There are no rules of conduct. It is doggy dog, scrappy scrap. There's no moral compass. People are not living so good. And the moral degradation of society, which he falls root of.
Yeah.
But he's lived the last 6 years in a wealthy kind of British environment with very educated people. And he works hard, there's no doubt about it. But he's getting an education along with them. They put him in school, he is reading books.
Yep.
You have an idea that he is becoming quite educated and quite capable.
Yeah.
And he is now drafted into this war. He doesn't have so many friends and he wants to fit in, and he just is not quite the person we want him to be at this point in his life. We want him to stand up for what's right, and he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And he ends up being part of a gang rape. And it's just so disappointing. And it probably, for me, is the low point of the book.
Yeah.
For you too?
I think so. And I'll tell you why. Because when we meet Ugwu, he is an innocent. And I think that this is a commentary on war. What does war do to people? We become inhuman to other people through war. We blow people up. We gang rape. And even someone like Ugwu, who before the war, it seems impossible to think that he would be so callous. It doesn't matter who you are. Wars are inhumane. And he finds out that his beloved sister has been gang raped.
Right. And he has to come to terms with that. Yeah.
Right. He sees how that has impacted her physically, emotionally, mentally. And he has to look at himself and say, yeah, and I did that too.
He knew what he was doing when he did it.
Right. He just didn't want to be thought a coward by those
other stupid boys.
The other boys, but he'd never had a group of boys like that. And they kind
Right.
of all looked up to him because he was so good at pulling the detonator at the right time. And I think he couldn't risk not having their esteem. And so he goes ahead and does it.
Yeah, I like what you said at the beginning, which was more of a commentary on we have gone as low as we can. We're at a breaking point.
Yeah.
We have no morality left. We're about as far removed from the human existence and from living a moral life as possible. This is as bad as it gets. Now the war has to end.
Yeah.
It's disintegrated all around us. And now new life has to begin. We have to come back. We have to find out ways to move forward. And he is one that has to find a way.
That's right.
He knows exactly what he did. He knows that he raped that woman.
Yep.
Now he's got to live with himself and the consequences of his behavior the rest of his hopefully very long life. And he may run into that woman at some point.
Yeah. And you get the feeling that he is going to struggle with that the rest of his life. If we survive it, war scars us deeply. We are never the same person again, just as Olanna, Odenigbo, they are never going to be the same person again after the war.
Yeah. They say, "How are you?" And they say, "We survived." And that's all people can say. We did whatever we did. We're out the other end. And we got to start anew.
Okay, so my final question for you is, throughout the book, there are little excerpts that are like a history of the Biafran War. And I think that Chimamanda wants us to think that this is Richard's book about the war. And then at the end, we find out Ugwu has written a book. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah. We know that he's writing on script little papers here and there.
Right.
But no, I did not see that coming. And I couldn't understand that it was even Richard. I'm like, I don't understand these excerpts and why they were there.
Chimamanda said that Ugwu is the character most like her. He's a questioner, a dreamer, and for her, she believes he was the soul of the novel.
Well, he was the soul, and the country fell apart, and so did he. And now we've got to rebuild and repair, and we've got to deal with our sins and our figuring things out. So I guess if that's what she meant by soul, I guess that is it. Do you think that's what she meant?
I think she felt that Ugwu was the protagonist.
Okay.
And beyond that, I don't know. But maybe what you're talking about, his story is Biafra's story.
Yeah.
This was good talking about the themes and the storylines. Next episode, we're going to learn more about Biafra.
I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it'll shed some more light on to what's going on culturally with the people.
Mm-hmm. He's Tewo Bello, and he is an assistant professor of African history and is an affiliate faculty member of the Africana Studies Center at Oklahoma State University. His research and teaching interests encompass gender and women's history, war and society, violence and conflict studies, the history of crime, law, and punishment, Black as diaspora studies, genocide, human rights, and humanitarian histories, as well as global and transnational history.
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to talking to him next time.
Well, great. Everyone, thanks for listening. Our website is frontporchbookclub.com.
Our episodes come out twice a month on the first and third Wednesday of every month.
See you next time, Linny.
See you, Dance! Oh, I do have a card. There it is.